Hey, hi, come on in. I'm just cleaning up some uniface and biface tools. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about uniface, biface, and thank you to one of our followers who said, you know what, you guys need to take a look at the bulb or / cone of percussion. You need to take a look at Burins, and you need to take a look at Retouch. And really, that's true. And that's some of the basic fundamentals of what we're doing and what we're building in you as well. So remember, I'm reflecting on North Central Ohio, East Central Ohio. This is our Ohio artifacts and one old guy that has over 60 years out in the fields. So I'm bringing forward my opinions, and I'm always open for reshaping my models, my thoughts, and that's good. That's what discussion is all about. So let's take a look at this. We've got hammers, and this is where the whole thing starts from. Hammers can be made from a multiplicity of things, and they're not all round. I kind of like round hammer stones, so I've collected a bunch of them. But they're just about in every field, and it's a matter of learning to recognize them. But they're big, they're medium, they can be small, they can even be this kind of ovate shape. Believe it or not, they can be even smaller than this, and they can be larger. They can be 2, 3, 4 pounds, and we call those mauls, where they're actually smashing the veins of flint to get some of the chunks out. So we start with hammers. Hammers actually strike the flint or the hunks of flint that we got out of the ground, and here's two good pieces to look at. Because a hammer struck this piece of flint, but it didn't hit it on the side, it hit the flint straight on, and what we have here are what we call cone of percussion and cone of percussion. And you can see how the rings go out like this, go out like this. And importantly, please keep this in your mind. Throwing a stone up in the air and let it land in a pond, and the waves and the ripples go out from there. And that's the way it is when a hammer strikes a piece of flint. You get these ripples that go out, and those will help you find your cone or your bulb of percussion, which we'll talk about in a minute. So these are cones, and interestingly, let's just say we got a block of flint right here, or a block of flint right here, and I take my hammer stone. If I hit it straight on, I'm going to get this. If I hit it sideways, poof, I'm going to get this. Now let's take a look at this. This could be a debitage, just nothing they could use, so they gave it a pitch, or it could be something else. And in this case, it is something else. I found my bulb, my cone of percussion is right here. I can feel it, and it feels like a little bulb right here. And I have some ripples, not real clear, but I've got my bulb. And you're going to hear me go to the polar opposite end to try to figure out what you got on this uniface blade. So let's flip him over. I don't see a whole lot going on here. I do see a broken end. I'm going to flip him. Look at this. We have a side scraper. We have a side scraper. Gramley talks a lot about it in one of his books, and I believe Collins even mentions it in some of his. So a big flake, another big flake, whack, driven off the side of this big piece of flint. Let's take a look at him. Just a big old long flake that came off. Okay, let's turn him over. I'm going to get closer to the light here. And what you're going to see is up here is the cone, and there will be things that will help you. You can feel it, but in this case you can't. It's been flattened. There's a thinning flake coming off the base. I'm going to flip him over. And another thinning flake right here to actually make this more available to hold or to haft or however they were doing it. And this little ridge right here, sometimes it's called an eris. But when you're dealing with freshly chipped flint, this can be razor blade sharp. So oftentimes this thinning will go clear down the eris. And but here we go. We've got our proximal, closest end of the uniface blade. We have our distal end. And I'm looking at them. I'm going to go to the distal end. And I see it's been snapped off right here. And I'm looking, I can see a little bit of retouch, not a whole lot. But let me remind you, when flint is first struck, you're dealing with an edge at least as sharp as a doctor's scalpel or sharper. So when it's initially struck, there may not be any need for resharpening, okay? So we have a blade. Now I'm going to show you some uniface and biface so that we can move into today's program. Here's another big flake. I'm going to flip him. Here we have the bulb or cone of percussion is up here. You can actually see the bulb a little bit and feel it. It's right here. And again, think in terms of the energy coming in, and it whoosh, goes out like this. So we have the bulb. Down here is the polar opposite end. I'm going to flip him over. Ventral side, dorsal side. Up here's the cone. You can see multiple strikes up here. I'm going to go to the polar opposite end. And look here. We have what we call in Ohio, and I think Gramley's nailed this pretty good too, and so has Collins, an end scraper. We're dealing with just a beautiful, beautiful blade, which if this weren't here, it would just be simply a blade knife. A blade knife, as you know, must be at least 2 times longer than it is thin, okay? Uniface. Uniface, but look at this guy. Can you see the ripples? Let me get a pen so I can point to it. And thanks for hanging in there with us too, by the way. Here's a ripple, here's a ripple, here's a ripple. And if you look at them, they're like upside down smileys. And what they're doing is they're indicating the impact point right here. This is our cone or bulb of percussion. Now, I don't feel a bulb here. I'm going to flip him over. Not much of a thinning flake either. Just a tiny bit, that's it. But look at the retouch. I'm going to flip him around a little bit. Look at the retouch going all along this blade. When it's first made, you don't need to do this. It's sharp unless you want to strengthen the edge because it's going to be more than paper thin. So if you want to strengthen that edge, you can do this really orchestrated retouch on this piece. Okay, another uniface blade. This looks like another blade, easily 2 times or more longer than it is wide. Semi-parallel sides, looking for my cone of percussion, and it's right here. You can see some of the bulb, and bulb and cone are interchangeable. They're just a little more descriptive of what's going on right here. Flip him over. Here he is again, coming back around. Here he is again. Look at this thinning flake right here. I can see multiple strikes where they took and tried to take off more flakes. In Ohio, as we go backwards in time periods, as we get closer to the archaic, early archaic, paleo, late paleo, we're seeing more and more of this serious thinning going on right here. Uniface, biface. Well, it looks like it's probably uniface, except let's flip him. Looky here. We have retouch all along one side, retouch all along one side. This is what we call a biface blade, okay? Biface, uniface. All this is information to put in your thinking cap. So let's go up here and look at my cheat sheet. Sometimes I'm really visual, and this helps me, so I hope it helps some of you. If we look at, let's just say, the average blade, here's where they actually struck it with a hammer, knocked a piece off. This side is what we call the bottom or the ventral side. And if we flip him over, you'll see a kind of a hump and an irises going down it. Okay, dorsal. Think of a dorsal fin in a fish, okay? The dorsal side, the ventral side. Proximal end is the closest to you. The distal end is the furthest out. Okay, that's really important. And I'm repeating a lot of this, and I've done this in past videos because I'm trying to get the language in your head, in your heart, so we can communicate, so you can communicate with friends, with us, email. Everybody will be speaking the same language and not 14 different varieties, okay? So coming back up here, we're looking at the bulb or cone. The bulb would be like this, bulbous, and the cone is the hit, and here come the smileys going out, the ripples going out, okay? Cone or bulb of percussion. Distal end is where, I think of it this way. If I want to go somewhere with my car, I need to begin someplace, and that's where the keys go in the ignition. Okay, that's the beginning spot. So with a flake or blade, you start at the cone, and then you go to the polar opposite end. And this is where you actually look for information that tells you what's going on. So we start here, we look here, and then we can finish up here. Okay? Isn't this fun? Okay, here we go. The flip side, or the dorsal side, the Eris, here's a thinning flake coming off the bulb. Oftentimes this will go all the way down. And you'll see this a lot in Ohio's paleoculture. A lot of times they would try to remove this, and it may be 1, 2, or 3 flakes with a crowfield point, which is a late paleo piece. You'll see multiple, they call it fluting, but they're just channel flake scars where they were thinning it down and sending it out like that. Again, opposite end, but look out here. This is a different blade. We looked at the ventral, now we're looking at the dorsal, come all the way out to the end. We see something really unusual right here. We see a deliberate removal of a flake, oftentimes creating a right angle. This is a mystery, everybody. You'll hear a lot of opinions from a lot of scholarly people on this. And we find these burins, we're going to take a look at them in a minute. You'll find these burins basically all over the place on these things. Sometimes they're just on the side, sometimes they're down here. But what they're doing is they're recreating, or they're trying to reshape another tool, or maybe we have a piece with 2 or 3 different tools going on at the same time. The word that I hear very often is chisel. And once they lose the chisel here, they come down a little bit and they drive another flake off. And they drive another flake off. Now stay right here. Keep your eyes on this. And here we have the base of a point coming down to the end. And we have this right angle strike right here, intentionally done. And I can actually see some stair stepping in here. And if we come to where the chisel right angle is, you see damage, use damage right there. This is a burin. Are they rare? No. Can you make a big deal out of them? No. You're just learning more about their tools, a very specific tool. Some people will jack this up and try to make you pay big bucks for something that's just another tool for them in the field. Burin. Let's take a look at burins now. Let me sit down. So we have many, many different types of burins. I'm going to start with this one. This is kind of a cool one. What did we say this was right here? Flip him over. You can feel kind of a bulb right here. A bulb or cone of percussion. A lot of attempts to thin right here. But let's go to the polar opposite end and see if we can figure him out. Well, we have a rollover. The energy came down and it rolled over when this flake came off. But now I'm looking right here. And what do I see but a flake that's been removed right here? And this side is still, the rollover is still present. But here we go. Now, a comment on rollovers. Rollovers and the cone are 2 very strong areas on this tool. So what they're doing is they're monopolizing on this lateral distal corner and making a specific tool out of it. And a burin was used right here. Okay? Here's another piece. And a lot of times pieces would break in the field. So obviously a bipoint tool of some sort, but here we go. This is a perfect strike coming all the way down. And if you look right in here, you'll see that it is indeed an intentional strike coming down. But here we are. Here's a flake that came off. We go to the corner, the lateral distal corner, and you see damage right here where they were actually using it. We don't know for what, but there we go. We talked about the bases. We talked about these right angles. Here's another one. Oh boy, coming down this side, looky here. This is an intentional removal of a flake. So when they had it, it broke, but they had a specific need, and at the breakage, They struck it, and then when you look at them, you'll see there were a couple strikes in order to get this burin, but the result is this right-angled type chisel, and I can see damage right there from use. Couple more quickies. Sometimes when you're out in the field looking, if you see a square worked piece of flint or rectangular, that's not normal. And so when I begin to look at them, I'm seeing intentional or accidental breakage and then turning it into another tool that they can use. So we have our little more than a right angle. This is almost an acute angle right here. This one is a little more right angle. This one is broken off. It's gone. Base of an arrowhead again, with a burin taken clear off the side all the way down to where they broke it. But look here, can you see the damage right here where this plane meets this plane? This is use damage. Okay, this is a tool type. Now let's look at some more burins. This is what we call in Ohio a small Lake Erie bifurcate point. This is out of the archaic time period. And let's take a look at these, because the burins are not where you would expect them. I'm just going to randomly pick one up. This is a broken base. But look at this along the side of this base. Look along the side of this base. These are specific blades that were taken off for a purpose. Now I'm going to set him down. Here's another one. We've got our base, but look, intentional strike to take this corner off, and an intentional strike or a burin to take this corner off. Now, I've listened to a lot of presentations where people said this is related to a type of hafting that they're putting on there to remove those so that they'll get a better in and out, not get hung up on the tip. It's possible, and we really don't know. But these are all examples of burins, and up here, more burins. Now, this is what we call a fractured base point. And let me just randomly grab one of these. This is a base. Okay. Here's the part of the neck. The point's gone, but let's look at the base. I'm going to flip him up. Look at these intentional strikes right here and right here. I'm going to pull out a couple more for you. This one was recently found, and I haven't washed him up yet. And hopefully by now you recognize this. This is evidence of having been in a fire. We've got the base, we have the shoulders, we have the neck, and look at the base. Intentional workmanship, which we call a burin flake removal. Now, why did they do this? I don't know. This is straight across the base. We call these fractured bases. Right here, we have a bifurcate, and these modified the base, okay? And these are archaic pieces down here that the tip broke, and they simply used it and made it into a new tool. Burins, everybody. These are called burins. Okay, let's slip down here this way and take a look at it. The bulb or the cone of percussion. This is really important because I mentioned to you, it's like if you want to go somewhere in your car, you got to get those keys in the ignition and off you go. So when you're trying to figure out your uniface piece, you got to have a place to begin, and the bulb or the cone is where you begin. So I brought a few, and we'll just take a quick look at some of these. And I can already see we're not going to get through all this stuff. I'm sorry, but I love it. Too bad. Okay, I'm going to start with the bulb. It's right here, and I can feel it, and you're going to have to do this. The best way to process what I'm doing would be taking your hands and feeling the little fingers on a newborn baby. Oh my Lord, feeling those little tiny fingers. And it's the same intimacy that you need to develop when you look at your tools and your flakes and your blades. So I'm able to feel the cone up here. I'm going to flip him over and look at here's an initial removal of the eris, and then these are subsequent strikes to remove more to flatten it out. Now it's very flat. Go to the distal end, and I can see retouch all along here. I see a lateral distal point gone, broken from use. And I see something else, and I'm just going to call it to your attention because you're going to have to learn this eventually. This little place right here, I'm going to turn them around. Hopefully you can see it with my finger backlighting a little bit. A little rise right there. The more I examine flint, the more I'm finding these. And these are some type of an engraver, an inscriber, and this whole thing was shaped out of a rollover. Oh man, we need to roll this puppy up. And we'll come back and we'll join you again here. What we're going to do is just take a real quick break, and then we'll come back. And actually, this may end up being a part 2. But we're going to break for a minute, let you catch your breath, get up, stretch your legs, and get some water or some beer, depending how you're doing out there. But hey, thanks again for joining us, and we'll be back just in a minute.